To our very first story, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has maintained the policy rate at 26%. The decision was attributed to the stability in the currency and current inflationary trend. This is the third time that the policy rate has been maintained since January this year. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Abdul Nasir Issahaku, announced the new rates at a media briefing this morning.
The Monetary Policy Committee meeting, which was the first to be chaired by the new governor, witnessed the introduction of some new trends. For the first time, Dr. Abdul Nasir Issahaku stood behind a lectern for the entire presentation, a reversal of the normal sitting position by previous governors. Dr. Issahaku also explained the reasons behind maintaining the policy rate at 26%.
There have been two readings of inflation. Headline inflation rose to 19.2% in March from 18.5% in February. The sharp increase in March was largely influenced by the lagged effect of the upward adjustment in transport cost. In April, however, inflation declined to 18.7%, following a slowdown in non-food inflation, driven by exchange rate development. The monthly inflation rates also slowed, supported by stability, of course, in the exchange rate. Similarly, core inflation, which is inflation excluding energy and utility, this picked up in March, largely due to the higher transport costs, but has since returned to a declining path. In addition, the latest surveys of businesses, consumers, and the financial sector conducted in April, that was last month, reflect declining trends in inflation expectations based on positive perceptions about the exchange rate movements.
According to him, the decision was taken in order not to be overtaken by events. On the stability of the Ghana cedi, the central bank boss attributed it to prudent measures introduced by the regulator instead of speculations of reduced demand for foreign currencies. Dr. Issahaku then touched on government's decision to invest $250 million proceeds from the Eurobond in the United Bank for Africa. He stressed that the Finance Ministry acted within the confines of the law.
Now, some good news for those who are shareholders of GOIL. Now, shareholders of Ghana Oil Company Limited, GOIL, are set to benefit from a 25% increase in dividend following a growth in profits after tax of 10.4%. This was announced at the company's 4th annual general meeting held in Accra.
At the company's 4th annual general meeting, shareholders approved board of directors proposed dividend of 0.025 Ghana cedis per share for the year ending December 2015, as against 0.020 Ghana cedis per share declared the previous year. The approved 0.025 Ghana cedis per share amounts to 6,305,587 Ghana cedis, compared with 5,044,470 Ghana cedis for the previous year. Profit after tax was 22.2 million Ghana cedis in 2015, as against 20.1 million cedis the previous year. Giving more details of the company's performance, the chairman of the board of directors, Professor William Asumani, said GOIL achieved the biggest market share of 17% among over 85 oil marketing companies, despite challenging marketing conditions and stiff competition. GOIL's fuel sales, he said, exceeded its own target by 20% during the year 2015. The company, he said, remained on course to achieve successes in the retail business through competitive pricing, offering quality additivated products and value for fuel purchased by customers. On future prospects, Professor Asumani said GOIL will continue to extend its operations towards the upstream sector, providing other services apart from bunkering and improving on other services such as the electronic card payment system or the GOIL Advantage card. The company, he said, will also reinvigorate its efforts to supply bitumen to satisfy growing national demand.
Now let's go to our earlier story of the Bank of Ghana maintaining the policy rate at 26% and get a reaction from an investment analyst, Samson Akligo, who spoke to Joy Business, saying that the decision for the central bank to maintain the policy rate for the third time. Let's take a listen to him.
Announcement of the new policy rate by the Monetary Policy of the Bank of Ghana was described as appropriate as inflation levels remain above the medium-term target band. Prior to the announcement, the Ghana Statistical Service had pegged the year-on-year inflation rate for April at 18.7%, down from the 19.2% recorded in March. According to Dr. Isahaku, the central bank will be able to attain its inflation target of 8% plus or minus 2 by the end of 2017. Sharing his thoughts on the new rate, an investment analyst who is also the managing director of Investcorp, Samson Akligo, highlighted some factors that may have led to the maintenance of the policy rate.
This decision really is a macro stability decision, and the whole idea is that the central bank wants to ensure that they maintain stability, taking into account development in a growth outlook, and of course making sure that asset prices, including currency, is stable. And for example, I mentioned inflation. What inflation does is that, remember, it erodes purchasing power. It affects pension income that pensioners receive. It also affects returns that investors earn. So when you have inflation going up, it is important that you compensate investors for that if you want to encourage them to hold especially city assets. So in doing that, I mean, you will not go back to say that in the event that inflation, the outlook for inflation shows that there's a risk, then you're going to reduce interest rates. No, if you do that, you're not compensating investors for holding asset prices and ensuring that we have stability in the financial market.
He also expressed fears that the rate might still go up as the election draws closer with its accompanying excessive expenditure.
In a lot of countries, election years, because of the electionary campaign, political parties have even the process of every campaign puts a lot of money, stimulus into the economy. If the central bank is having an idea that is going to lead to inflation, yes, then of course, again, the role of the central bank is to stabilize the economy on an ongoing basis. So they'll be forced to take those measures that are important in mobilizing that liquidity. But if the evidence is that this election period liquidity is going to cause a bit more of monetary expansion, that really will influence inflation, I'm sorry, but the central bank will be forced to increase the interest rates, and that means that interest rates would go up.
The next Monetary Policy Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, July 15th, 2016.
We take a quick break now, but coming up, we have the interactive segment. We'll be reading your comments to know exactly what your thoughts are on our question of the day. We also have Bertha standing by with stock for today, so please don't go away. Now, the Ghana Cocoa Board says it is optimistic it will achieve its targeted output for 2015-2016 crop season with almost 5 months to the end of the crop season. Cocoa Board at the beginning of the 2015-2016 crop season set a target of 850,000 metric tons. This was up from the 800,000 metric tons it set the previous year. Head of Public Affairs at Cocoa Board, Noah Amenya, spoke exclusively to Joy Business.
Well, this year we have given cocoa farmers fertilizer at the right time. We've measured their farm to know the exact quantity of fertilizer that they require. So all the farmers whose farm will respond to fertilizer application are given those fertilizers, and it has been given to them timely. So they are applying it. We hope that would improve on the fertility status of the soil, and then the plants will be able to yield better. The other thing is also to reduce pest and disease incidents on the production area. So what we've done is to give them chemicals ahead. And we are giving the chemical directly to farmers. Why? Because we want the farmers to have the chemicals. So at any time that there's incidents that they need to use the chemicals, they are able to use. There are gangs that do the spraying. So the farmer will call those gangs, they'll go and do the spraying, and Cocoa Board will pay them their allowance for going to spray that farm, so that the farmers have much control over the usage of the chemicals.
There are concerns that this seeming unrest between ICU, GAU, and then Cocoa Board is affecting production levels. Is that what you see?
Well, incidentally, Cocoa Board workers are not producing cocoa. They are not the ones who are farming the cocoa. It is the farmers who are doing the farming. And so the farmers' activities and the yield of cocoa has nothing to do with the union issues. What is happening is between the union, that is the junior staff of Cocoa Board, and their mother union, which is ICU. The workers are saying that they are not satisfied with the mother union, and therefore they are withdrawing. That has to do with the two bodies. They have to resolve their issue. Management does not come in. Management will not force the workers to belong to any union. The workers can decide that no, now they will not be in ICU, they will be in GAU, or they will be on their own. That has nothing to do with cocoa production. It has nothing to do with management activities. So we are saying that what is happening at the union front has absolutely nothing to do with cocoa production in Ghana. We are on course. Once we have favorable weather conditions, once the farmers are working hard as they are working, we would achieve the target that we have set. If we go forward and we need to revise the target because some factors have changed, we'll do that. But for now, we are on course to achieving our target of 850,000 metric tons.
So we are not scared of competition coming from Cote d'Ivoire?
No. The two of us, even though we are in competition, we are collaborating to satisfy the world cocoa economy, to supply the world with the much needed cocoa in the quantities that are required. So if the weather is favorable for production for the two West African countries who produce more, because there is a market for cocoa, the demand is rising, and we need to produce sustainably to service that demand. And so for us, there is no competition like they shouldn't produce. No, we are producing premium quality cocoa, and they are also producing their cocoa. Whatever it is, we started cocoa production before Cote d'Ivoire. And so their plantation is younger than that of Ghana. And that is why we are taking these measures of rehabilitating the farms so that we can change the structure and then be able to. But we are not in direct competition that we should overtake them. Ours is to produce cocoa that will bring the much needed income and at the right quantity so that the market does not slam for the farmer to stop the cocoa production. We want to support the farmer to continue to be in cocoa production, and therefore there should even be collaboration so that we can learn from each other to continue to produce.
Now, that was our interview for the day. Now, let's go to our feature for today. MTN Ghana wants more collaboration between telcos and operators of internet calls, such as WhatsApp. The company believes this would be of mutual benefit for all parties. MTN is working on a partnership with a video internet app operator to ensure customers have access to the service. Speaking to Joy Business's Chantel Asante, Chief Executive Officer of MTN, Ebenezer Chuma Asante, indicated the telco has other plans for 2016, including rolling out its 4G service and 35% local ownership of MTN.
Is a big numbers game. So when you have, say, Ghana engaging the OTT with Nigeria, definitely Nigeria will get a priority. But we'll continue to push. We would initiate the process to engage formally. But as to whether we'll be able to get all of them on board is a different story. But I'm sure very soon there is a big discussion, a big launch that we'll do with one of these OTTs, which currently is available globally. But within a month or two, one video OTT player will have a formal agreement and relationship with them to launch formally in Ghana for our subscribers to also get the benefit of that video OTT.
What's happening when it comes to you in the 4G space?
4G is good news. We promised the commercial launch by June, July, and we still stand by that. We've done the soft launch effective end of April. So today, more than 70% of Accra has 4G coverage. And all the regional capitals have 4G coverage. Most of the key commercial areas outside of the regional capitals also have 4G coverage. For now, we say June, July. It could even be earlier. But
why the need to change your SIM card?
That is the requirements of the technology. The SIM card in your phone can operate up to 3G. So for your phone, if your phone is 4G compatible, your phone can only read and pick the 4G signal when it has a 4G SIM.
In terms of your localization projects, where you said that in May you were going to issue a statement. We are in May. How far with that?
Okay, we have started the process. We have engaged a transaction advisor, and you know, a localization process goes through a lot of requirements. So we are engaging with the relevant authorities, the relevant regulators, just to make sure that we have all the necessary approval. Should we secure all those necessary approval and we reach a stage where we are in a position to make a public statement, definitely we would. But as I keep saying, we still stand by the localization. It will happen in line with the license requirement. And we expect as many people as possible to take advantage when we actually open it up.
Our business feature for the day. Now, time to go to the stock and commodity market. It's a fresh week, wondering how your stocks are faring, how we closed last week, and projections for this week. Bertha Tubig, as usual, is here with all the details. Hello, Bertha.
Hi, it's Anand.
So how did we end last week and projections for this week?
Okay, so last week on the stock market, we could say that it was a very good week. Not extremely good, but we can say it was a bit positive. We saw the composite index actually remaining stable. It started the week at negative 9.71%, and we didn't see any change. It was still the same. And then we saw the financial stock index actually appreciating marginally by 0.16%, and it reduced its year-to-date decline to negative 11.90%. It started the week at negative 12.06%. And then you look at the market cap, that's the weight of the exchange, or the worth of the exchange. It went up by 133.22 million Ghana cedis.
Is that significant?
It's not that significant, but it is because we saw some equities such as ETI and GCB being part of the gainers, and we know ETI is the third highest market cap equity on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That is why we saw that. And the gain in ETI was not very much. It was a very marginal one. It added a peswa.
But it had an impact.
It had an impact. That's why we saw the weight of the market actually going up. GCB also has a higher market cap, and we also saw that being part of the gainers. So we saw that marginal, I wouldn't say very marginal, but we saw that increment in the worth of the exchange on the Ghana Stock Exchange. But you look at the volumes and then the value of the equities that traded last week on the market, you realize that it went down. The volumes of shares went down by 71.21%. So we saw a total of 277,269 equities trading on the exchange. And that gave us the worth of these equities was of 483,932.05 Ghana cedis. So, and you look at the value, you compare it to previous week, you realize that it has also dropped by 51.06%. So this is where we didn't have much equities actually trading on the exchange, but we saw some equities coming out to make gains, and all the equities actually made gain last week. It was only GCB that added 4 pesos. That's 1.33. They all added a peso. So ETI went up by a peso, MLC by a peso, PBC by a peso, and we also saw Societe Generale, the French bank, also going up by a peso.
The top gainers,
PBC was the top, MLC, was the PBC, was the top gainer. It added 14.29% to investors.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's not much. It was just a peswa gain. But you know, with these low-priced equities on the market, what happens is that when their market cap is not very huge, like we have in ETI, then you see the percentage or the relative terms being a bit higher than those that have very high.
Mean that shareholders will get a lot
They shouldn't
more.
panic.
Okay.
Well, it is a lot because if you invest 1 million Ghana cedis in PBC,
that's a lot of
money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
1% gain, a peswa gain, selling off at that peswa gain will actually give you more interest than the price that you bought it. You actually bought the share. So PBC was a top gainer, MLC was a third, ETI was a second top gainer, adding 5.88% to investors, and then MLC added 5.56%.
Let's look at losers briefly. They'll look at
last week we
projections.
actually had more equities losing as compared to the gainers, and we still haven't. Actually, what happened last week was quite, should I say, it's not a shock, but it's not going to be a consistent thing that we're going to see. Some equities, for instance, FML, GOIL, which have very impressive first quarter financials. And then you look at FML, which is actually under the manufacturing sector. We have some stability in our power sector. We have the cedi also being stable on the forex market.
Right.
And then you also have them benefiting from the stability of the cedi. And then inflation too, well, that's a statistics, okay? But when you want to talk about the real value of goods and services, you realize that it's not actually the same. But inflation has also dropped from 19.2 to 18.7. And that is also positive, and that is very good for the manufacturing sector.
So let's look at projections. I mean, briefly, what we should look out for the
well, we're still looking at
for this week.
This week we're expecting some equities like Unilever to gain, looking at its fundamentals and it being quiet last week. We didn't see it moving. We're expecting Unilever. We also expect some marginal gains in EGL.
How about Benzo Oil Palm Plantation?
It was part of the losers last week.
It should come up.
It should come up. You know, it's also exposed to some risks. That's the commodity market.
Right.
And you know, crude palm oil has not been very favorable lately on the market, and that is also having some impact on their total production and all that. Yeah.
Thank you, Bertha. That's how we wrap up with the stock and commodity market analysis. We'll be back with your social media comments, so please don't go away. Time to read your social media comments. Earlier in the day, we put on Facebook. I'm sure you know that for some time now we've had a shortage of cassava. So we asked you, has the size of your 2 Ghana cedi fufu reduced due to the shortage of cassava? Have you noticed 1 Gari Olonka has moved from 8 Ghana cedi to 15 Ghana cedi in a matter of weeks? How much do you pay for a paint bucket of cassava dough? Share your thoughts with us. And we have been collecting your thoughts. Mensa Konto Steven says, let the truth be said. I am cassava farmer. Last year, there was bountiful harvest for cassava, which reduced the price drastically. So this year, I didn't waste my time to cultivate cassava. Thank you, Mensa. Now, Deborah Erickson says, I'm not a fan of eating fufu, but the size of my family has pushed me to increase their buying of #cassava. Okay, now Nanajua Wete says, they are now using the cassava in making a beer, and I think it's a factor. It has affected my fufu eating. Pa. Okay, now Mahamoud Habib Jawula says the economic hardship in Ghana has now reached unbearable level. Very soon, some of us may have to look for better alternatives somewhere in like Brazil, Italy, or even worth on Libya, because life in GH is really a hell, I must confess, really. Okay, now we also have Bamir Osanka. And he says, in fact, my coconut size has reduced drastically since last 2 weeks. Oh, I'm sorry, Osanka. Now, Natoma Mahamudu says, it's very hard to even come by 2 Ghana cedi nowadays. And we also have Saki Isifu. He says, vegetables are seasonal foods. They have their abundant time and scarce time. You should know, everybody in Ghana knows it. There's not vegetable. We're talking about cassava. Those were your comments. Now, get interactive with us, myjoyonline.com/business. If you tweet, we are at Joy Business GH, and Facebook Joy Business. Thank you so much for making time with us today on Business Life. We are back again same time tomorrow. My name is Eton Amse. Many thanks for your time.